Hello to Sportswire once again, and we've got a special guest today, like we discussed. It's got back. I've got a lot of isn't it? Just get Scott apart from accepting our invite. Thank you so much, Scott, for joining us today.
No, mate, it's an absolute pleasure. It's long overdue. Obviously, the time difference is tricky, but it's always nice to speak football with some excellent fans like yourself. So looking forward to it. The audio is cutting out a little bit on my end, but I'll do my best.
Okay. Srihari, who's on the chat. Srihari, can you confirm if both audio is fine for you in terms of broadcast? Is everything fine? While we get a response, Srihari, while you respond to that, I just want to give this floor to Scott to quickly introduce himself and about the channel. We've got his channel description as well in the link of this particular live currently, so you can go check it out. But I'll leave the floor to Scott.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you for having me. I co-host a football channel called It's a Football Thing. I do that with a good friend of mine, RJ, who's a massive Chelsea fan, well known in the Chelsea community, and another friend of ours, Rob, who's a Manchester United fan. So we do 2 shows a week where we talk about all the action in the Premier League. We just finished a show about an hour and a bit ago, so I would absolutely love some of your people to jump over and subscribe and check us out. We're almost at 500 subs. And we did just announce that we're doing a jersey giveaway. So if you check us out on social media, we are doing a giveaway soon. So exciting times.
Perfect. So another growing channel in terms of the YouTube community. IFT Podcast. I remember, when this IFT Podcast got started with Art and Art, both of them were missed channels. How I got introduced. Into the Arsenal conflict. If I just quickly talk about how we got this idea to start the channel and what basically instigated, for you to build up this community. We've got Rob from Manchester United, I believe, who's on the channel. A lot of Australians, of course, who are fans for this particular channel. So talk to me about the thought process behind you starting this channel before we get into the Arsenal details, of course.
Yeah, look, it was pretty simple. RJ and I went to school together. So RJ and I have been friends for about 20 years, just under 20 years. So we've always done this anyway. And Rob's been a friend of ours for, about 10 years. So us guys have always talked football together. And one night we were, having a meal and having a talk, and we said, "Well, why don't we do this on a podcast? We do it anyway. Let's record it and put it out there." So we try and keep it very natural. We keep it very clean in terms of the content, and it's really just 3 mates having fun with plenty of banter.
Yeah, I've seen particular channel, and I mean, when I talk about IFT podcast, the first thing that I get attracted to is, first of all 3 of them support 3 different channels, but 3 different football teams. But when it comes to discussion, it's always been more fact-wise, if you understand what I mean, right? There's a lot of facts there. Scott agrees to certain points when it comes to Arsenal. RJ does the same as well. Rob again, the same thing. So that is where I believe, that is how a community should be run, where people know exactly what they're talking about, not just because you're a Chelsea fan, you'll have to always keep supporting Chelsea no matter what the reason is, right? And doesn't just go for Chelsea, for any community per se. But thank you so much again for coming into the channel, and we'll quickly get into what we have for the agenda today. We'll just cover things around Arsenal in general before getting into the specifics of the Big Six. Of course, this is a Big Six show, which means that the Big Six teams will be, every single week we're going to get in a speaker, and we will be talking with them about their respective teams, including Chelsea, of course. And this is the first week that we're starting it, and you are our first guest as well. That shows probably my respect to the channel, IFT Podcast. Thank you so much for coming in once again. And guys, he is from Australia, so he's actually taken out time from his night. I don't know what your time right now is. Somewhere around 11 o'clock.
Yeah, it's 20 past 11 at night.
Wow. Yes. Yes, it's 11:20 there. It's 11:20 there at Australia. So thank you so much, Scott, once again for taking your time and being part of this channel. Let's get into the details now. Arsenal Football Club. How long have you been supporting Arsenal? And first of all, why would you want to support Arsenal?
Look, it's pretty simple. I've been supporting Arsenal, since I was 5 or 6. And really it's all come from my grandfather. So my grandfather was born overseas in Europe, and for him, the club he always followed was Arsenal. And he'd spent a little bit of time over in England. And when he was in England and spent time in London, Arsenal was just the team that he fell in love with. And in my family, there's not many football fans, to be honest. Most of my family follow different sports like rugby league. I've got a couple of family members who love cricket, but yeah, my grandfather and I always had a bond over football. So I naturally just followed his lead and fell in love with players like, Tony Adams, Thierry Henry, Patrick Vieira. We've been blessed with some brilliant players over the years. So yeah, it's really from family.
Makes sense. One of the club with the richest history in London, of course. I hope Chelsea fans are not on the comment section there. Otherwise, it would have already instigated some sort of confusion. But nevertheless, Arsenal is still a bigger club in terms of its rich history and diversity. So I'm going to respect that when it comes to Arsenal. I think Scott's, all good now. There's a bit of lag there. Anyways, so the next question that I wanted to probably ask you is again about your country, Australia. The fan base is kind of split between rugby, cricket, and football. Football, not that much, if I'm to be honest. Rugby is pretty famous, and cricket as well is pretty famous, I believe. From what less that I know about Australia, I've never been to Australia. I've been to Southeast Asia countries, but not to Australia before. So, but then we've got a good connection with Australia as an Indian, because most of the games that we play in cricket is something that we play against you, and you know how much of an importance Ashes is for you guys, and which is currently happening right now as well in terms of cricket. But talk us through, Australian fan base. How is it? How is it basically segregated? Is it like 3 states majorly support one particular sports or something of that sort, or is it like spread across? Like when we talk about India, right? I can give you a geographical representation here. Kerala and West Bengal usually support football. The rest of the other states, they are oriented towards cricket. So do you have something of that sort? How does it work?
Look, there is a little bit of that. One thing with Australia and its culture is sport is a very dominant part of culture. So sport is something, it's one of the first points that come up in conversation when you meet a new person. What do you follow? Who do you follow? Do you play? So sport's a massive part of culture for us. In terms of segregation, football is probably, and I think my facts are correct, the most popular sport in terms of player base with young people. So football,
you mean in Australia?
Yes.
And
Football.
just to get the context right, we're talking about the English football, right? Not the American one.
Yeah. No,
Right?
English soccer, if you will.
Soccer.
As well. So that is the most played sport, especially where I live in New South Wales. The problem is our youth development here is not amazing. So a lot of kids will play, but then as they get older, fall out of love with the game. Rugby league, rugby union, cricket, AFL, they're all very popular here. But generally Melbourne seems to be more about AFL and football. Or soccer. Well, I'll use soccer just so there's no confusion in here, but I know it's football. New South Wales, where I am, is more about rugby league and soccer. And then it just varies depending on where you are. But there's quite a big spread. Australia's a really diverse place. There are people from all different cultures. And naturally, sport can sometimes be linked to culture. So Yeah, it's hard to pick one dominant sport, but all sports are pretty well supported down here.
Wow. Um, Again, a wonderful continent or a country. I'm not sure how we'll have to talk about that, but yeah, a beautiful country, Australia. Very nice sceneries as well around. Some of my best interest in terms of historical monuments, the opera, I guess, the house at Sydney. That's good. I mean, yeah, when we talk about Australia, we can go on talking, but then we're here for another reason. Of course, we're here for talking about Arsenal Football Club, and let's dive into it. First thing that I want to talk about is this 33, 34-year coach that you have, or the manager that you have, Arteta. What are your thoughts about Arteta as a manager? I know he's been with your club as a player for quite some time, but not as long as he was with the other team. I guess he was with Everton more, right, than with Arsenal.
Yeah, it leveled out a little bit towards him because he did spend some time at Rangers too. So it was similar. But in terms of him as a manager, I want Mikel Arteta to succeed. So I'm not one of these fans that is desperate for him to go or wants Arsenal to lose games. I want him to succeed. Even if you were managing Arsenal, Vijay, I want you to succeed. I want Arsenal to win games first and foremost. To me, Mikel Arteta is still inexperienced. That's pretty obvious. But one of the things that sometimes I get frustrated with is his stubbornness. I understand really experienced managers, for example, like Pep, being stubborn because their philosophy is tried and tested. But to me, Mikel Arteta is stubborn, and it takes him too long to make big changes. We only brought Emile Smith-Rowe into the team when we were sitting 15th on the ladder last season. We only brought Lacazette into the team at the start of our 10-game run after we lost miserably. So one of my criticisms is that it takes him a really long time to make some obvious calls. On the flip side, I think that him and the team he works with have made some really positive signings. Aaron Ramsdale, for me, has been a sensational signing. Takahiro Tomiyasu has been a brilliant signing at right back. Sami La Kanga, there have been some really good signings. So I think the jury's still out on him. At this point, if you offered me, for example, someone like Ten Hag or who else could I say? Or a Luis Enrique, I would probably take those guys right now, even Antonio Conte. But the club seem committed to Arteta, so I'm happy to let it ride out to the end of the season and see how he goes, because there have been some improvements.
But is that going to happen? I mean, given the current position right now for Arteta, I mean, last time I know you guys finished 8th. So if at all Arteta manages to get a 6th or a 7th, does he retain the job?
Look, it's hard to say. For me, if I was in charge, any lower than 6th, and it's goodbye for me. I think 6th is the absolute lowest finish I would take, especially when you consider that prior to the last 2 matches, we were in a position where we could challenge for the top 4. And we've kind of let that go. So 6th is the lowest I would take. Anything below that, I think he has to go straight away.
Makes sense. I think it also gives a bit of direction and perspective of what Arsenal's boardroom is expecting out of their players or the managers, right? If they're sacking Arteta, if he's finishing 6th or 7th, then the ambition is pretty much high. And if they're okay with him finishing 6th and 7th and wants to extend his contract or one more year, then it is what it is. The board is not least concerned about the success as much as you want, as much as you get Europe time, they're fine with it, right? I hope that is not the direction that the board is traveling in. But that's a nice segue as well, because my next question was somewhere around the board after Kroenke coming in for Arsenal. Of course, there's a lot of money that has flowed in, and you guys expected a lot as well. And to be honest, this transfer window was very good for you in terms of getting players. I know the quality that you expected might not be what you received. The amount that you spent and the quality that you expected, I think they are both not. I would say they're both inversely proportional. But at the end of the day, you've still managed to spend the maximum amount in the last transfer window. As an effect, there are certain expectations in your team as well. Of course, there's a lot new faces, but there are certain expectations of Arsenal, moving up the ladder, getting a European spot. At this point in time, it's hard for me to even say a club like Arsenal is not in Europe. And it's difficult for the fans, of course, because this club has a legacy, and the fans, of course, have certain expectations. And is that because, Arsenal is now into 8th spot? Partially, the reason you could argue is because of Arteta. But is Arteta the only reason?
No.
Should we also talk about the board here?
Look, not just the board, but the players as well. And I know we'll get to the players, but nobody's blameless. And I think when you look at a club that's underperforming, it's naive to just blame one element. If it's clearly obvious that a manager is, doing crazy things, then yeah, okay, you blame just the manager. But it's not as obvious or simple with Arsenal. There are a few problems, one of which is Mikel Arteta's inexperience and stubborn nature. That to me is one factor, one of many. The Kroenkes, one of my biggest criticisms was that they hadn't financially backed the manager, but they did in the last window. So if they can improve that and continue to back us, we should improve. But I feel like one of the criticisms of the board is that they're not in touch. There's too many people with inexperience. The Kroenkes are not football fans. The Kroenkes, haven't got vast experience running a football club. The Kroenkes appointed Edu in a pivotal role who has never done that role before. And then we've got an inexperienced manager. We've got Per Mertesacker running our youth, and I think he's doing a good job. But again, he's someone who's not experienced. So I think one of the board's failures has been an inability to put experienced heads in key positions. I would have liked to see Arsene Wenger come in as our director of football, because I think with his experience, love of the club, he would do a great job as a director of football. But instead, we've got Edu in there who, again, hasn't done this job before. So my criticism of the board is that they've not made the right appointments. They pulled the trigger on Unai Emery very quickly. But then under Arteta, we finished 8th twice. And they've not made that call. So they're gambling at the moment. And time will tell if it pays off.
It's a nice point that you make. Unai Emery, I don't think so he was as bad as Arteta in the way that he played his team. But what caused that? What was the direction that Arsenal was actually getting to? Like, you sack Unai Emery, and the next thing that you would expect the club to do is go one level up and get another manager of a different caliber. And I don't understand the logic behind sacking Unai Emery and bringing in Arteta, who's got probably zero experience, zero management experience at least. He's been an assistant coach with Pep, if I'm not wrong, but he's not functioned on his own. So for someone who's not functioned on his own as a manager, is Arsenal, or should Arsenal be the first step in his management career?
No, surely not. And that's not, look, I didn't think it was right when Frank Lampard got the job at Chelsea. I didn't think he was the man for them. And lo and behold, he helped progress them, but he couldn't take them all the way. Yeah. Now, in the time since we sacked Emery, sorry, you're right.
And sorry to cut you off. And you talked about Lampard. He at least had the Derby County experience, but still we felt that Lampard was not up for the job. And if you talk about the similar sort of a rivalry, a similar sort of a bigger club there in the same London, and you're making this sort of a decision, it doesn't seem good.
No, I agree. But look, I look at it since we sacked Unai Emery. These are some managers who have been sacked or hired by clubs. You've had Pochettino, Thomas Tuchel, Ralph Ragnick. Who else? There are plenty of names that could come up. Some other managers. Look, even those three, Thomas Tuchel, Ralph Ragnick, and Pochettino, three guys who I think would have done a better job than Mikel Arteta.
The thing is, they were available as well at different times.
Absolutely, and there have been more. There have been more. Even we're seeing someone
Conte
like
was available.
Who?
Conte was available probably months back.
Yeah. So there are plenty of good managers out there, but at the moment now, if we were to sack Arteta, I don't know who we bring in because the managers seem to all have positions. That's why I think it needs to go to the end of the season.
Makes sense. And since we are on the board topic, of course, just wanted to talk to you about one more thing that I've been hearing from the Arsenal perspective for quite some time now about the possible takeover from Thierry Henry, and I guess he's got some sponsors with him.
Daniel,
is that going to be materializing? Do you see any truth through that?
I don't think so. I think there's a lot of talk, but nothing will come. The Cronkies don't need money. That's one thing they don't need. And they seem to be pretty stubborn. So I don't see Arsenal being sold anytime soon. Not for at least 10 years.
10 years is too much of a time if they're going to stay in this 8th and 7th spot. Hopefully they improve and get back to that top 4 race. But moving on, one more point with respect to Kroenke, right? The last interview that he actually had given, I'm not sure if it was Arsenal TV or for Sky Sports, but the interview was good. One of the points that he was talking about in that interview was that about how successful he wants the club to be and how confident he is with Arteta. After looking at that interview, the first thing that came to my mind is this guy's not going to sack Arteta anytime sooner. He seems to be having a lot of confidence. Of course, when he spoke in that interview, you had gone through a lot of losses. The phase was more of a a loss phase. It was not even a winning phase. But he was so confident in Arteta at that time. That is something that kind of told me, and it was kind of different from a Chelsea's perspective, a Chelsea fan's perspective, of course, because when we see a lot of losses like this on the trot from Chelsea's side, we sacked the manager. And when Kroenke came out and said this, it almost looked like he's not going to change the manager, and it was like the decision was more of emotional than a strategic one, is what I felt. So I know there's not really a question in what I'm actually talking about, but what are your thoughts on Kroenke's, that particular interview, if you've heard it before?
Look, they're not inexperienced in terms of being around reporters and being asked questions because they've got plenty of franchises, so they know the right things to say. They know exactly the right things to say, and they're going to say them. To me, actions speak louder than words. We saw some actions in the transfer window where Arteta was backed financially. I just want to keep seeing action. I want some experience in the back room. I want Arteta to be backed again in January. And I want to see them, if they're this committed to Mikel Arteta, then back him. Give him the money he needs. So time will tell.
Okay. That's good. So now enough about the board management, of course, and the coaches. And now let's quickly jump on to the players. The most exciting part, of course, of any of the interviews is about talking about players, because those are the ones that you see on the pitch and you know a lot more than, of course, the boardrooms and the rest of the stuff, which are more hidden space that you don't have access to. It's all speculation at any point in time. But when it comes to players, I'll start with Aubameyang. He's not been having the best of run right now. He's been missing chances from 6 yards, open post and all that. I almost felt like, is he becoming a Timo Werner for Arsenal? But Timo Werner yesterday turned the tides. But what do you think about Aubameyang for this particular season? Do you think his reign in this Arsenal t-shirt is almost coming to an end? Gabonese striker, Gabonese international, coming from Borussia Dortmund as well. Very well. I mean, when I talked about, sorry to cut you off there.
No.
When you guys brought in Aubameyang, I was very excited because I've been following Borussia Dortmund very closely. At that particular instance, they had Marco Reus, Gundogan, and the couple of other players as well, Lars Bender, Pizek, and all these folks on the defense. Of course, they were a very strong squad, and that squad was led for goal scoring. They depended on Aubameyang to do it, and he did a wonderful job. Then he came to Arsenal. Initially, a couple of seasons were good, but right now he seems to be a bit rusty.
Yeah, look, he's aged, and I mean, one difference I think between I totally get the comparison with him and Timo Werner, two strikers who haven't been clinical. I guess the difference is Aubameyang has a track record where he has shown that he can be a successful striker in the Premier League. He signed this new contract and it seems to have gone downhill. And that almost does coincide with Arteta's reign. Now, I don't think that Mikel's system gets the best out of Aubameyang. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what system you're playing in. When you're missing from that range, you can't blame anyone but yourself. So I do think we are actually, unfortunately, seeing the end of his dominance at Arsenal. And I wouldn't be shocked if we have a different captain next season.
Makes sense. And if at all you want a different captain, who do you think is going to take up?
Look, Aaron Ramsdale or Kieran Tierney. For me, I think those two are. Aaron Ramsdale's very vocal. He seems to have galvanized the defense. He's loved by the fans, and he's someone who's going to be playing 90 minutes every week. Kieran Tierney, for me as well, is someone who has played. He's had experience with Celtic. He leads by example on the pitch. He's aggressive. He'll fight. I think he's another player who could do it, but I would genuinely say I think it'll be Aaron Ramsdale. I wouldn't be shocked if Granit Xhaka was our captain, though. I genuinely wouldn't be shocked. But if it was up to me, Aaron Ramsdale gets the armband.
Okay, not a bad call, if I'm to be honest. Goalkeeper getting a captain, we've seen that working out perfectly well for Buffon, of course, in the past. I think he was the captain for almost 41 until his 41. A very good captain for both Juventus and Italy. But yeah, it's Arsenal, and Ramsdale has had a very good start. That kind of is a nice segue for us to dive into the goalkeeping issues that you've been having in the past with Leno and then now with Ramsdale. Did you actually expect Ramsdale to perform this way?
Look, I knew that Ramsdale was a good player. My kind of concern was with the price tag. I thought at the time that we might be overpaying, but I don't think we've overpaid now. He's a good keeper. He is better for me than Bernd Leno. He commands his area better than Leno. He's got the defense playing in a more consistent way. I do feel a little bit for Leno because Ramsdale has benefited from a consistent defensive line in front of him, whereas Bernd Leno never got that at Arsenal. He always had rotating centre-backs. He had Rob Holding. We had David Luiz, Pablo Mari. It continued to rotate during Leno's times. This is really the first season in a long time where we've had a consistent back four. So, yeah, I still think Ramsdale's the better keeper. But there's nothing wrong with competition for places.
Yeah. Agreed. Same situation here as well, but in a different level, of course. Mendy and Kepa. Both are doing exceptionally well. Especially yesterday's game would have been a 5-1, to be honest, with if it was not for Kepa in that post. But it is what it is. Mendy is having some confidence issue at this moment. But moving forward to your transfer buys in the previous season, of course, Ben White, how successful has he been today in Arsenal? He's of course, this is what was slated when Ben White came in, right? A ball playing centre back for 50 million is a good bargain. I'm still not sure if it is the case, but I think he's doing okay for whatever
we paid a lot of money for him, but that's football now. You don't get cheap players anymore
Yeah.
It's so rare. You either develop your own or you overpay. So, look, we paid a lot of money, but again, if you want the player, go and pay the money and get them in. And I think he's been a big upgrade on what we've had in the past. I would take him over Rob Holding or Pablo Mari, David Luiz. David Luiz, maybe 5-6 years ago, I would have loved, but we got David Luiz at the end of his career. So I've been happy with Ben White. I feel like him and Gabriel has been a really good combination. So again, happy with that signing. Tomiyasu, who we signed to be our right back. Again, he's been really versatile. He's been, a couple of mistakes here and there, but he's adapted to the Premier League quite quickly. So
Yeah.
I'm really happy with those signings at the back.
I'm surprised at the game time that Tomiyasu received once he's come into Arsenal. I honestly did not expect that sort of a game time from him. Arteta was so confident on him, and he started off, and he's almost playing every single game, if I'm not wrong. I've been watching Arsenal as well closely. I think that he's playing every single game, and he's able to almost keep every. I guess he plays on the right back, right? Right back is the position that Tomiyasu starts in. So he's been able to do a good job in holding back Xhaka in one of the Crystal Palace game. He did a good job against him as well. Antonio as well. He's been keeping him quiet in that particular game. I think Tomiyasu's done okay.
Me too. I'm happy. I'm happy with the signings. We just need to do the same thing in January. We need to bring in some good signings to strengthen our team.
And I think that Tomiyasu buy as well is something that you'll have to give to your scouts.
Absolutely.
Tomiyasu was nowhere in the conversation from any leagues or any teams at that point in time. I think that's a find.
There had been some rumours that Spurs were in for him, but the deal never materialised. And when he heard Arsenal were interested, he wanted to come over. So, look, it was a good find from Bologna to come over to be starting right back for Arsenal. So, again, I'm really happy. I'm a big fan of Japanese players. I find their professionalism is always good. They'll always work hard for the team. They take pride in their performance. So, yeah, it was really good to see him come to the club.
Brilliant buy as well. And now to Sami La Kanga, of course, not being consistent in and out of the team actually this season. What's your thoughts on Sami La Kanga?
Again, look, I think he's probably been our best midfielder, our best central midfielder anyway. He's had some moments in games where he's messed up, Liverpool being an example, but this is what young players do. They're going to make mistakes here and there, and that's an important part of their development. So in terms of his age and where his potential is, I think, again, another great signing. I'm genuinely very happy with the business we've done, and it's been a long time since I've said that about a transfer window for Arsenal.
Let me put you, get a question. I mean, okay, this is how I probably think about this situation, right? The money that you spent, do you think you spent it on the right areas?
Tricky question. Look, we needed to improve the defense. Our defense was atrocious. So I'm okay with all of those signings. I would have liked a more dominant, more defensive midfielder. I think that was something. Well, we've been crying out for a strong defensive midfielder since Patrick Vieira left. We've not had that. So I would have liked to see one come in. In terms of striker, a lot of people say we should have signed a striker, but if I'd have told you that at this point in the season, Aubameyang would have so few goals, people wouldn't have believed me. They would have told me I was crazy. So I don't think we could predict that.
It's the same as with the Lukaku situation as well, right? And when Lukaku came in, no one predicted at this point in time he'll have just 4 or 5 goals to his name.
And he started so well, Lukaku. He smashed us. And then it went very quiet. So it happens. I think we need to address striker in January because Lacazette's contract is expiring. And I think he'll go. I don't think he'll be retained. And Aubameyang is looking like someone who's just not interested. So we need to sign somebody in the window.
Okay, we'll definitely get to that when we talk about future transfer prospects. But right now, did you guys sign anyone else? Did I miss someone in the transfer window that you guys have signed? Sami La Kanga?
Look, we bought Martin Odegaard back in.
Yeah, Odegaard from Real Madrid. He was on loan
And
before, right? He was still playing here.
he was on loan, but then he went back and we made it permanent. So, yeah, look, he's been okay. He's had some decent games recently. I'm not his biggest fan personally. I feel like he's not creative or dynamic enough. I'd rather Emile Smith-Rowe play centrally. But I do also think that Odegaard is someone who's got plenty of potential. And with the right management, he could be a good player.
Makes sense. And that's pretty much about the transfer window then. Quickly touching up on the formation that you guys have been playing with, 4-2-3-1, I believe. Sami La Kanga and Partey in the CDM, or right defensive mid and left defensive mid, however you want to call it. Back four with Gabriel. I believe it was Gabriel, Tierney on the end, Tomiyasu on the other end, and this is Ben White in the center with Ramsdale on the goal. The front three keeps changing, but then Emile Smith-Rowe is one of the constant. Saka, of course, and Lacazette and Odegaard keeps shifting that position. The one behind the striker, I guess we could probably call it a cam if they were a bit behind, but they still play as backup striker sort of a thing. And Aubameyang on top. What do you think about this formation? Do you think you want to see a change in the formation? Do you think there is a different formation that could be better for Arsenal right now? Or you think, no, the formation is fine. All that we have to get is the system ready and the players to perform well in this formation.
We need the players to do their jobs. Like if, Eddie Nketiah or Aubameyang score those point-blank opportunities, the narrative around Arsenal is very different at the moment. So I think I'm okay with the formation. I would like to see Emile Smith-Rowe play more as a 10. I don't like him. I don't like him out wide. I still think he's a great player wherever he plays, but I'd like him more in a 10. I'd like to see Saka on the right. And I actually think that for the time being right now, I would probably start Lacazette at the top and play either Pepe or Aubameyang out on the left. I would rotate those two because I don't think Pepe is a bad player. I just think he had a bad run of form. I don't think that Arteta favours him, and he hasn't been able to get back into the team. He's been frozen out. So I think we're actually seeing the end of Nicolas Pepe at Arsenal. But I think between Aubameyang and Pepe on the left, you have an option there. So I'm okay with the current formation. I still think La Kanga needs to be playing in the middle. I would drop Thomas Partey at the moment. His form has been dreadful. I would be going with Xhaka and La Kanga in the middle.
Okay. Makes sense. So that's on the formation. A quick question before we get into the future transfer prospects, of course. I know right now Arteta has been doing a good job in getting you in that 8, 7, 6 spot, around that mark. But if you want to be a top 4 team, would you still stick with Arteta, or say this manager is someone who can only take you till 5th and then you might want another change? He's not ready to compete for top 4. Is that your thought process, or you would still support Arteta? If he's got us to 5th, he's probably going to get us to the top?
Look, as long as he's employed by Arsenal, he has my support. I will support him as much as I can until I feel like he can't be supported anymore. We've finished 8th 2 seasons in a row. My minimum expectation for this season is a 6th place finish. Minimum.
Okay.
If he's successful and he then stays on for the next season, my minimum expectation then becomes 4th. I want to be in the top 4. I understand that these things take time. And I think being a little bit of an older football fan, you kind of look at it a little bit differently, and you understand that things take time. Football, it's not FIFA where you just buy the best player and you're the best. You can score goals easily.
Good example, PSG right now.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you look at that PSG lineup; they should be running away with everything, but they're struggling. So I just want to see progress. For me, progress this season is sixth. Progress next season is top four. If he can't hit those benchmarks, the club need to be ruthless and find someone who can.
Agreed. Having said that, now we get into the most exciting part of the segment, which is future transfer prospects. Of course, when new player comes into your team, you look forward to what he's going to bring into the table and how he's going to perform and all of that. So let's divide this segment into two, right? Your winter transfer prospects and your summer transfer, the next summer transfer. Uh, what is the fan base actually calling for? Do we? I'm not very much into the Arsenal community, so it's very difficult from a neutral's perspective to understand what are the players that you guys are currently looking up to, or who would you want, or who seems to be more of a possible or a plausible buy at this point in time. So anyone that you're looking forward in the winter transfer window, and you think it is probably going to materialize?
Look, in terms of what's probably going to materialise, Arsenal are a very hard club to make transfer predictions about because Tomiyasu is a perfect example. There were rumours about so many players during the last window. Tomiyasu's name never came up, never, except when he'd signed. So Arsenal's transfer business is generally done quietly.
In the dark. All right.
So it's hard to say who I think may materialise, but I can tell you some players who I'd like to come in. One for me is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Arteta's system requires a striker at the front who can hold up the ball, finish across, because a lot of our attacking play comes from crosses, and bring others into the action. I actually think that Dominic Calvert-Lewin is a person who fits that profile. Now, of course, I'd like to be signing your Haalands of the world, but that's not where Arsenal are at this point in time.
Yeah.
So realistically, I think Calvert-Lewin is someone who we could look at and who would improve.
So of course, going to be competition from Tottenham here. If at all they have the budget for it, and Tottenham Conte is ready for it, but they still have Harry Kane, so they'll be looking to replace someone if he's going out of the window. And I don't think so. I think Calvert-Lewin is a good option for them, but I'm not sure how realistically possible both for Arsenal and Tottenham this move is. But yeah, not a bad signing, not a bad call as well. I think it'd be a right fit for Arsenal.
I also wouldn't mind in the middle someone like Basuma from Brighton. I know he's still young, but I think technically he's a good player. He's got a good passing range. Guys like Mohamed El Neni and Xhaka are not going to be there forever. So you need guys who you can start planning for around the future. And Basuma is someone who I think would fit in quite well. Outside of that, look, it's going to depend on whether we get rid of Nicolas Pepe as well, because if Pepe goes, we need to bring someone in who can play in those wide positions. And that's where I'm really confused. I just don't know who we would go and pursue. I think January is going to be very quiet, to be honest, for a lot of clubs. But Basuma and Dominic Calvert-Lewin are two players who I think could really make a difference. Definitely make a difference.
Good call. That's on the winter transfer window. And what next for your summer?
Look, I can't answer that. It's so far.
It's too early.
So far away. But look, I do think we'll have a lot of movement.
This is probably where I'd say, right, in summer transfer window, it's probably going to be your fantasy players that you'd probably want in your team. Then because you don't know where Arsenal is going to finish. What if they finish fourth? It's a good possibility, right? I know it's kind of impossible, but there's good possibility that it could happen. I mean, I'm again saying this as a fantasy, right? So if at all that happens, you might need another professional or a prolific person up top or, on the defense. So I'd say in summer transfer window, you could just slog for someone.
Look, Maddison is someone who I'd like to see. come to the club. I thought it was going to happen last window, but it didn't quite happen. Maddison also fits that English quota, which is handy when doing your squad registration. So I'll take Maddison. Oh, geez, it's tough. Look, now you said to me fantasy kind of players and those. This is not someone. I don't think this will happen in a million years. It hasn't even been talked about at all. But I think I would love someone in the mold of Declan Rice, who I know that Chelsea also fancy. But if I'm Declan Rice, why would I leave West Ham for Arsenal at this point in time? And would Arsenal cough up the money? So I would love Declan Rice and James Maddison in there to play with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So they're three players just off the top of my head that I think could really make a difference. I'm a massive fan of Declan Rice. Massive.
Okay. It's odd. I was thinking that you'd go for Lautaro Martinez. I mean, because there's some sort of thoughts in the previous season as well, the summer transfer window, that if Lukaku leaves, then Lautaro Martinez is probably going to be leaving, and Arsenal could be a good place for him as well. And he seems to be fitting your profile, actually. So any thoughts on why not Lautaro Martinez?
I do have reservations about how he'd adapt to the Premier League. The Premier League is very fast. The Premier League is very physical. And I just don't know if he'd make it. I think back to, and I know they're different players, but I think back to Angel Di Maria, who came to Man United and was a terrible signing for them.
Yeah.
But has flourished at PSG and has been a good player for them. So
he's done good in Spain as well.
Yeah, I don't
He's
know.
not able to crack the English code, that's it.
I don't know if Martinez could crack that English code either. Certainly not in Arteta's system. He's not. Arteta needs a physical striker up front. My dream player to play in Arteta's system is an Olivier Giroud who's 6 years younger. To me, he has the physical attributes that would absolutely match this system. But he's just a little bit too old now. A little bit too old, and I think he's done some damage to his Arsenal chances during his time at Chelsea. But if I could go back in time and sign an Olivier Giroud who was 26, 27, I would absolutely do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think that particular sell was something that hurted you badly. Should have not done that. Yeah, I agree to that. And now he's older to play in his other leagues like France, and now he's not going to be the material, the English material at least. Yeah,
no way.
It's almost like bringing in another Aubameyang. So no, I don't see that happening anytime.
No, unless we can send him back in time 6 years. I would only sign him if he was back at 26 or 27.
Yeah, I mean, if that at all happens, then you could probably not have Arteta in your team or as a manager. I think you would go for that option rather.
Absolutely.
Anyways, yeah, I know. Anyways, so with that, we're coming towards the end of the show. A lot of good topics that we've covered today. I hope so. Of course, every single time before we finish any conversation with any of the speakers, I'm going to ask you guys, because it's usually me asking questions and then you guys responding to it. Any questions that you have for me from, an Chelsea's perspective or anything else that you'd want to talk to me?
Absolutely. Look, we've seen Romelu Lukaku struggle at Chelsea. Who do you blame for his struggles? Do you think it's Lukaku is not good enough for Chelsea's system, or is Chelsea's system not getting the best out of Lukaku? Who do you blame for that?
I'd go for the second option. The Chelsea system right now is not something that suits Lukaku. I'm not sure if you watched yesterday's game that we played. We had to deploy a 3-4-1-2 formation, and he started looking better. I'm not saying he was completely good and all that, because he was, of course, playing with close to 70% match fitness. He's not 100% match fit. And the last 3 or 4 games that he's been playing, Chelsea fans will understand that he's been not fit physically. So we just slowly getting him to strides and then starting to get him 90 minutes game. Yesterday was the first 90 minutes game. That also he did not finish the entire 90 minutes. He was replaced by Kai Havertz around 75 minutes. So what I'm trying to say here is the system is not something that Lukaku. It's not a system that revolves around Lukaku, and Lukaku likes a system to revolve around him. And this system is more of a wing back based system. And even the wingers cannot flourish in this system if it's a 3-4-3 because the play is a bit restrictive. If you understand what I mean, we've got Chilwell and James running through the wings, which means the ZHs and the Werners cannot run through the wings because there is already a couple of players occupying each of those areas, which means these guys are restrictive and all that they can do is do an overlapping run and take a shot from outside the box or just probably run in. That's the maximum that they can actually do. So the wingers has been also been restrictive, and Chelsea attacks with 5 players up top, and when they go to the defense as well, they go 5 players back, and which means that everyone in the center is very restrictive. Only the wing backs are allowed to walk around the pitch or run around the pitch, and they need to have a huge work rate. Now Chilwell is off, which means that one side is off. And so the other mistakes are becoming more visible. To answer your question about Lukaku, I think that is probably the reason why we are not able to see Lukaku perform as well, because Lukaku is someone who's used to playing in at the front 2 or a front, just one player up top. He's good with that. Or even 3 players. But this is 5 players in the system. It's too many players and too many areas that these guys take up, which means that Lukaku also becomes more restrictive. And he's not able to combine well with these people when they move into the forward, because each of them have different strengths and different way of playing, different style of playing. So that's where I think it's probably hurting Lukaku. So, but a good question. I'm not sure if Chelsea is going to shift their system to suit Lukaku, or we'll have 100 million transfer. Individual on our bench. Either one of this is going to happen very soon.
Interesting. I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
Who, if you could only have one player back at Chelsea in their prime, who would it be? Anyone from Chelsea's past, who would you bring back in their prime?
Given the current context of Chelsea, I'd bring back Drogba. I mean, we need someone to put the ball in the back of the net, which is not happening in our team. And the best man to do that job, and historically, he's been the best man to do that job for us. And I think Drogba would be the one. We've got Diego Costa on the chat window as well from Vieira.
Good call.
Yeah, logging in from Singapore. Diego Costa, not a bad call. But I think Drogba is more physical and can do, what we're expecting out of him. So well said, Vida says IFT Pod, which is again Scott. So with that, we are as well coming towards the end of the show. Of course, Scott has got to go, get some sleep actually. So I guess it's past 12. He's already entered into the next day in Australia, I believe. So I'm gonna, just give some rest to Scott as well. Any closing thoughts, Scott, before we leave? Anything you want to talk about in terms of the channel, in terms of Arsenal, or in terms of Chelsea or Premier League on the whole?
No, look, honestly, it's just been great to finally link up. I hope we can do it again sometime. We, on behalf of all the guys at the IFT Pod, we obviously respect you and your support of our channel as well. So thank you for supporting us. Thank you for putting our channel in the description. Please jump over and subscribe to us as well. We're all growing content creators, and it's a hard job creating content. But, with passionate people like yourself and like us, we just keep doing the best we can. So, no, I thank you for giving me the time to come on, and hopefully we can link up with you on our side one day.
Definitely, Scott. And also, guys, just for people on the chat, of course, because Scott is wearing the Arsenal jersey, don't think this is going to be an Arsenal channel, IFT Podcast. Of course, I know when Chelsea people from here wants to subscribe to a channel, they're going to first look into it. Is it an Arsenal channel? Why would I do that? So probably that's not the assumption that you have to go with. This podcast is more of Manchester United, Chelsea, and Arsenal fans speaking together, and there's a lot of healthy debate that goes on in the channel. I love the channel, and hopefully you love it. You love the channel as well. Go subscribe to the IFT podcast, guys.
And most of the live chat are Chelsea fans. So we have mainly Chelsea fans in the live chat. So if you've got some Chelsea fans here who want to support us, please jump over and subscribe. But you know what, on this comment, I think we're at the end of the time where we rely on Aubameyang. I think Arteta's had enough, to be honest, and that's why I'm hoping that we get that signing done in Christmas. That's all I want for Christmas.
And show the door to Aubameyang. A going away present for the Christmas for Aubameyang. Hopefully that happens. A lot of Arsenal fans as well thinking the same. With that, we come towards the end of the podcast, or should I say the live stream. 55 minutes into the stream, a good stream again. Next Thursday, we'll be here with another big 6 guest. Until that, this is VJ signing off. Thanks all. Have a good day ahead. Peace out.